What if I told you that anger isn't the enemy? That the very thing you've been trying to suppress, your rage, your frustration, your boiling emotions, could actually be your greatest teacher? Think about it. How many times have you snapped at someone and regretted it later? How often has your anger made you say or do things you wish you could take back? And yet, have you ever stopped to ask why anger exists in the first place? Most people fear their anger. They treat it like a wildfire, unpredictable, dangerous, something to be extinguished immediately. Society tells us to calm down, let it go, just breathe. But that's like telling a volcano not to erupt. The pressure builds until one day it explodes. The truth is, anger is not the problem. The real problem is that we don't know how to control it. We either suppress it until it eats us alive, or we unleash it recklessly, hurting ourselves and those around us. But what if I told you there's another way? A hidden path, one that doesn't involve suppressing or exploding, but instead mastering your anger, learning to use it rather than letting it use you. In this video, we're going to uncover the lost wisdom of anger. We'll explore ancient philosophies, modern psychology, and little-known techniques that will transform how you see and handle your emotions. We'll learn why anger exists, what it's really trying to tell you, and how to channel it into power instead of destruction. And by the end, you won't just be able to control your anger. You'll understand it, you'll wield it, and most importantly, it will never control you again. Now let's begin. For centuries, anger has been misunderstood. Some cultures feared it, others revered it. But one thing remains constant. Every great civilization has grappled with its power. Stoics, turning fire into focus. Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome saw anger as a double-edged sword. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, warned that the best revenge is to be unlike your enemy. He believed that anger, left unchecked, poisons the mind and leads to irrational decisions. Stoics trained themselves to pause, observe their emotions, and choose reason over reaction. But here's what most people miss about Stoicism. It wasn't about suppressing anger, it was about mastering it. Stoics understood that anger isn't evil. It's energy, and energy can be redirected. Epictetus, a former slave-turned-philosopher, taught that it's not things that upset us, but our opinions about them. In other words, anger isn't caused by what happens to us. It's caused by our interpretation of events. Someone insults you. You get angry. Why? Because you believe their words have power. But if you change the interpretation, if you decide their words are meaningless, then the anger disappears. The samurai, the way of the controlled storm. Across the world in feudal Japan, the samurai lived by a different code. Bushido, the way of the warrior. Unlike the Stoics, they didn't just observe anger, they channeled it. A samurai was trained to turn fury into precision. Before battle, they would meditate, visualizing every move, every strike, every counterattack. They understood that an angry fighter is a sloppy fighter. The moment anger controls you, you've already lost. Miyamoto Musashi, one of Japan's greatest swordsmen, wrote, "Control your emotions or they will control you." He didn't mean to reject emotions, but to use them like a blade, sharp, focused, and under control. The hidden link. Why this knowledge was lost. Over time, modern society took a different approach. Instead of training people to control anger, it taught them to fear it. Schools, workplaces, and social norms pushed the idea that anger was bad, something to suppress, ignore, or bury. But buried anger is like a pressure cooker. What happens when you keep pushing your emotions down? One day, they explode. This is why so many people struggle with anger today. They've never been taught how to face it, to recognize it, to use it. But that's about to change. In the next section, we'll break down what anger really is. Not what you've been told, but the truth hidden beneath centuries of misunderstanding. You'll discover how your brain processes anger, why it can be both a weapon and a tool, and most importantly, how to finally take control. Are you ready? Most people think of anger as a problem, an outburst, a moment of losing control. But that's not the real issue. The real problem is that people don't understand what anger actually is. Let's break it down. What is anger, really? At its core, anger is just energy. A surge of emotion triggered by something we perceive as a threat, physical, emotional, or even social. It's a natural biological response that evolved to help us survive. Imagine you're living thousands of years ago, hunting in the wild. Suddenly, another tribe tries to steal your food. That flash of rage? That's your brain pumping adrenaline, preparing your body to fight back, defend yourself, and survive. Fast forward to today, someone cuts you off in traffic. Your boss humiliates you in front of coworkers. Your partner says something cruel. Your brain doesn't know the difference. It still reacts as if your life is in danger. It's trying to protect you. But here's the problem. In the modern world, most threats are not physical. They're psychological. And yet, we respond with the same raw, explosive energy, as if we're still fighting for survival. Anger isn't bad. Misusing anger is bad. The science of an angry brain. When you get angry, your brain sets off a chain reaction. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, detects a threat, an insult, disrespect, injustice. Adrenaline floods your body, raising your heart rate and tensing your muscles. The rational brain shuts down. Your ability to think logically weakens. Your survival instincts take over. You react, often without thinking. That's why people say things in anger they later regret. In that moment, you're not thinking, you're reacting. But here's the good news. You don't have to be controlled by this process. You can hack your brain and regain control. Not all anger is the same. There are two kinds. One destroys, the other empowers. Destructive anger. This is uncontrolled rage. The kind that leads to fights, broken relationships, regrets. It's impulsive, reckless, and self-sabotaging. Constructive anger. This is controlled power. The kind that fuels revolutions, drives change, sets boundaries. It's focused, strategic, and useful. The difference? Control. The moment you learn to pause before reacting, you stop being a slave to anger. You become its master. But how do you do that? In the next section, we'll explore ancient techniques and modern science-backed methods to transform your anger from an uncontrollable force into a tool of power, focus, and wisdom. Are you ready to take back control? Now that we understand what anger is, a surge of energy designed to protect us, we need to ask, what should we do with it? Most people make one of two mistakes. They explode. They let their anger control them, leading to outbursts, damage, and regret. They suppress it. They bottle it up, pretending everything is fine, until one day it all erupts. But there's a third way, the hidden path that warriors, philosophers, and leaders have used for centuries. They didn't reject their anger. They refined it. They controlled the fire instead of letting it burn them. Let's break it down. The three-step process to mastering anger. Step 1. The pause. Breaking the automatic reaction. When anger hits, your brain pushes you to react instantly. You must break this cycle. The secret? Pausing. Before you yell, before you act, before you let the anger control you, pause. Now, take one deep breath. This interrupts your brain's automatic reaction. Feel the anger in your body. Don't fight it. Observe it. Where is it? Your chest? Your hands? Say nothing. Do nothing. Just wait. This small moment of stillness is powerful. It shifts you from reacting to choosing. Samurai had a rule: never draw your sword in anger. Always wait, always control, always decide. You are not a slave to your emotions. Step 2. The question. Turning emotion into intelligence. Once you've paused, ask yourself, what is my anger really trying to tell me? Anger isn't random. It's a signal. It's trying to tell you something important. Is it injustice? Maybe you feel disrespected or unheard. Is it fear? Maybe you're afraid of losing control or being vulnerable. Is it a boundary violation? Maybe someone crossed a line you didn't set clearly. Your anger isn't the problem. Ignoring what it's telling you is the problem. The Stoics believed every emotion was a teacher. Anger teaches us where our boundaries are. Instead of lashing out, learn from it. Step 3. Redirection. Using anger as a tool. Now, instead of letting anger explode or suppressing it, you redirect it into action. What does that look like? Instead of yelling in an argument, speak slowly and calmly. Control the room, not just your voice. Instead of dwelling on an insult, use it as motivation to improve yourself. Instead of feeling powerless, set a boundary, take action, or make a change. Anger is energy. You can waste it on destruction or convert it into power. The choice is yours. Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's greatest swordsman, said, "Control your emotions or they will control you." The difference between a warrior and a fool is simple. A fool reacts. A warrior chooses. Let's clear up a few lies society has told you about anger. Anger is bad. No. Uncontrolled anger is bad. But controlled anger fuels revolutions, creates boundaries, and sparks progress. You need to calm down. No, you need to understand your anger, not ignore it. Suppression leads to explosions later. Just let it out. Wrong. Research shows venting anger, like screaming or punching a wall, actually increases aggression. You're feeding the fire, not controlling it. The goal isn't to get rid of anger, it's to master it. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, I get it. But how do I apply this in real life? That's exactly what we'll cover in the next section. Practical application. You'll learn simple but powerful exercises to train yourself to pause, question, and redirect anger before it controls you. Because once you learn to control your fire, you become unstoppable. Are you ready? Now that you understand anger, what it is, why it happens, and how it can be used, we need to turn knowledge into action. Here's the truth. You don't control anger in the heat of the moment. You control it in the moments before. Just like a warrior trains before battle, you must train your mind before anger arises. Let's get into the techniques. The 5-second rule. Stop anger before it explodes. When you feel anger rising, you have 5 seconds before your brain fully engages in fight mode. Use this window. The moment you feel the heat, do this. Inhale deeply through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold it for 2 seconds. Exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 seconds. This simple breath pattern disrupts the anger response and gives you control over your reaction. It sounds simple, but the impact is huge. Why it works? It stops your amygdala, the emotional brain, from hijacking your response and gives your rational mind time to regain control. Name it to tame it. Separate yourself from anger. Anger isn't who you are, it's something you experience. The problem is, most people say, I am angry. I can't control my anger. This locks you into an identity where anger owns you. Instead, reframe the thought. I am feeling anger. I notice anger is rising in me. It may seem like a small shift, but this creates distance between you and the emotion. You are the observer, not the anger itself. Why it works? Your brain calms down when it labels emotions. Studies show that simply naming a feeling reduces its intensity. The warrior's pause. Train yourself to respond, not react. Imagine a master swordsman in battle. He doesn't swing wildly. He waits for the perfect moment. You must do the same with anger. When someone provokes you, practice the warrior's pause. Feel the anger without reacting. Don't suppress it. Just let it be. Ask, what is my goal? Do you want to win an argument, prove a point, or resolve a situation? Choose your response. Instead of yelling, state your point calmly but firmly. Instead of lashing out, ask a question that disarms the situation. Why it works? This puts you in control. Instead of reacting blindly, you act with intention. The anger audit. Discover what triggers you. Most anger isn't random. It follows patterns. If you don't know your triggers, you can't control them. Exercise. Write down the last 3 times you got angry. What triggered it? A person? A certain situation? A specific word? What was the deeper cause? Disrespect? Feeling unheard? A lack of control? You'll start to see patterns. Once you know what triggers you, you can prepare for it. Why it works? Awareness is power. The more you understand your triggers, the less they control you. The redirection. Channel anger into strength. Instead of fighting anger, use it as fuel. Angry at a setback? Turn it into motivation. Let it drive you to improve. Angry at injustice? Use that fire to create change. Take action instead of complaining. Angry in an argument? Stay calm while the other person loses control. That gives you the upper hand. Anger is energy. You can waste it on destruction or convert it into power. Why it works? The best athletes, leaders, and warriors use anger as a tool. They don't let it burn them. They refine it into focus and drive. Mastering anger isn't about getting rid of it. It's about controlling the fire. A wildfire destroys. A controlled flame gives light, warmth, and power. Which will yours be? Now that you know the tools, the next step is simple. Practice. The more you train, the stronger you become. Are you ready to take control? Anger isn't the enemy. Losing control of it is. You've learned that anger is just energy, a force that can either destroy or empower. The Stoics treated it like a wild beast to be tamed. The samurai wielded it like a sword, sharp and precise. Science shows that anger isn't random. It's a trigger, a signal, a tool. But most people, they either suppress it or explode. One leads to resentment, the other to regret. Neither gives you power. Now you have the tools. Pause before reacting. Break the cycle. Identify the trigger. What is anger trying to tell you? Redirect the fire. Turn raw emotion into focus, boundaries, and action. Mastering anger isn't about never feeling it. It's about never letting it control you. When you learn to hold the fire in your hands without getting burned, you become unstoppable. Now, the choice is yours. Will you be ruled by anger, or will you rule it?